Justin, were you talking to me, Fred Pittman?
Oh, no, Fred. Yeah, no. Okay, so we are recording now, so thank you all for coming today. Just a reminder to put your phones on mute. There will be an opportunity for Q&A at the end, but hold tight on those questions until we get through the agenda. But thank you all for being here. A lot on today's agenda to talk about, but we have a special guest speaker today. One area that we've not talked a lot about in the last week or two, but is vitally important right now, is childcare. And I have Tara Agnew from the RESD on the call, and Tara is going to talk to you about what the RESD is doing in a leadership role to help meet the childcare needs, particularly of our essential workers. So with that, Tara, can you talk about what you're working on?
Sure. Good morning, everyone. The RESD is coordinating efforts to assist our essential workforce in accessing childcare services during this time. Some current things that are happening right now, the Great Start Hub is operational and is the one call that essential workers can use if they need assistance in connecting with childcare during this time. Justin, thank you for sharing the resource numbers yesterday. I appreciate that. We're also collaborating with Central Michigan 211 and Help Me Grow Michigan, but all of that information will eventually be rerouted to the Shiawassee Hub, so we're the single entity for coordinating this for essential workers, so they know they can just call one number and get connected to what they need. We continue to connect with the providers in Shiawassee County to make sure we have the most up-to-date information to share with the essential workers when they call. So we're gathering information regarding the status of their operation, their capacity to provide childcare to the essential workforce, and also making sure they have access to food, as well as the cleaning and disinfecting supplies that they might need. Currently, we have 18 providers in Shiawassee County that have capacity to provide childcare services to our essential workforce. The biggest challenge at this point is that many centers have been unable to remain open due to the low number of children they're serving, due to the fact that they're only serving the essential workforce at this time. On a positive note, we have a lot of amazing childcare providers in Shiawassee County that are still open, and many centers and providers that are willing to reopen if the need for our essential workforce childcare needs continue to increase. So I think that's a positive note, that we still have options and have good collaborative relationships with our providers in our county, that they'll be ready if the need increases. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, actually, why don't we, and I don't know, Tara, are you able to stick on the call? We normally take questions at the end of the program, or we could take them now if you need to jump off.
Oh, no, I can stay on. That's completely fine.
Okay, so let's hold questions, but I want to thank you and everything RESD and all the child care providers are doing. It's a huge, huge issue now. It's actually a huge, huge issue even apart from this crisis. Some of you on the call know that is has been a challenge for providers or for companies not having enough providers in the community. So trying to find more child care resources, I think, is going to be critical, not only for now, but going forward. So we're very grateful for all the work the RESD is doing through Great Start and all that. And so very, very important work that you're doing. So thank you for that.
Thank you. We're happy to help.
Thank you. And like I said, you may have some questions for Tara. Let's hold those until the end. I sent everybody on my email list just a couple of minutes ago the final guidelines for the Paycheck Protection Program from the federal government. So these are the final details. I haven't even had a chance to read through them. It's a bit of a crazy time right now. It's probably an understatement as it relates to this program. Hopefully all of you have been in touch with your lender on this. We may have some lenders on the program too that might want to provide an update. So please jump in at the end here if you have comments on that. But basically, it feels like they're building the boat while they're trying to row it. and they're trying to make sure that they get money out very fast because money is needed quickly by America's small businesses. But at the same time, there are questions regarding paperwork and regulations and rules that could create an opportunity for massive fraud, which is scary as a taxpayer. So this has been, I think, the big debate that's been going on in Washington over the last few days is how do we get that money out as quickly as possible, but also have enough protections to ensure we're not getting fraudulent claims on the behalf of companies. So I think that's where the friction is, Ben, and it's a legitimate question because normally, as everybody knows, in order to get loans, you need to provide a lot of documentation, and there needs to be a lot of verification. And you can't have that luxury if you want to get money out the door, according to the Treasury Secretary, the same exact day. That's what he said in a press release last night. I read he wants people to apply online and get the money the same day. I mean, that's like one of those, cash advance type TV commercials. So, and you're trying to do that with $350 billion. So it's a scary prospect, obviously. But I want to say this. I very much commend our local lenders. As I've said many, many times this week on this call and in emails, these need to go through your bank, through your financing institution, through your commercial lender. And I've been very impressed. I've had a lot of conversations with lenders this week. They are at varying levels, depending on who your bank or credit union or institution is. Some are going to be ready to roll today, getting applications in today when that's live. Some are recommending waiting until early next week. And in order to make sure the dust settles a little bit and, nothing is missed. I had a good conversation with one yesterday, and I won't call him out by name, but, one thing we want to make sure is we don't want things to get in too quick and then, we find out, oops, that was wrong, and that loan can't be turned into a grant. And I think that's really the big factor here, everybody, is the beautiful thing about this is the opportunity to turn it from a loan into a grant, to make it a forgivable loan. Because, as we know, a lot of businesses, small and larger, don't want to or are not in a position to take on long-term debt, even if it is cheap debt. And so making sure the paperwork is followed to be able to turn it into a grant, I think, is going to be very critical. So everybody's at different phases right now. My recommendation, I sound, like a broken record here, but my recommendation is keep talking to your lender, stay in touch with your lender, take their recommendation. They're the experts here. They're the ones that have to file the paperwork. They're the ones that are monitoring, the situation. So please follow your lender. So that's point 2. And then point 3 I want to make on it, and I've said this before, we are getting some feedback that some institutions may not get into it, may choose not to do it for various reasons. And so if anybody has a need for other lenders that are going to be doing it, please let us know. But first and foremost, talk to your existing lender. And those that know me know that I'm always particular. I never try to lead business away from another company. I always encourage you to work with who you're with. And I can continue to do that here. But if you do need somebody else, please let me know. So, as I said, check your email. Those final guidelines are out there now. It should provide you a little more information on it. And once again, we'll have a Q&A period here in a minute if you have further questions on the program. I do want to continue to talk about the SBA disaster recovery loan, if only because I've talked to several businesses that have expenses and costs outside of that Paycheck Protection Program. So the paycheck is for payroll, utilities, rent, but companies have other costs. So that disaster recovery loan can be a supplement to Paycheck Protection to cover other expenses. You can't double dip. You can't use them for both. So the recommendation, I think, would be to use the Paycheck Protection for those wages and benefits and utilities and whatnot. But if you have other costs, that would be an appropriate tool. And they are also offering the opportunity to essentially front $10,000 in an advance. That one you apply yourself on the SBA Disaster Recovery website. So I'm going to continue to talk about that. I believe as we stand here today on Friday, April 3rd, those are the two primary tools that you ought to be thinking about for any of your new capital needs. Now, I did also get notification, and once again, I'll ask any lenders on the call to talk about this, but another benefit apparently that's come out of this process with SBA is they're delaying repayment on anybody that has a 7A loan right now. So some of you have commercial loans that are direct with a bank, and you're going to have to make arrangements with your own bank on repayment on those. But if you have an SBA 7A loan, my understanding, I heard this yesterday, is that those payments can be deferred for a period of time, several months. I don't have the exact date on that, but definitely wanted you to be aware of that. So that's it with the SBA. I do want to give an update, though, on the MEDC grants and loans. I've been talking about this all week. We had a conference call briefly before our call this morning. We will be issuing a press release at some point today outlining the situation on the grants. All grant, everybody that applied for a grant or loan got a notice yesterday, and then everybody that got a grant was notified. Everybody that did not get a grant was notified. There's a lot of questions out there, as you might imagine. And so we will be issuing a release in conjunction with the Shiawassee Regional Chamber and the Small Business Development Center yet today with details on that, on process and who was involved. What I can tell you, and I think I've said it earlier this week, the fundamental challenge, and I know there's going to be some hurt feelings out there, but the fundamental challenge here is we only had the ability to fulfill about 10% of the grant request. So we had $93,211, and there was over $900,000 in grant requests. So that's the fundamental core of that. And then on top of that, we made a very, very conscientious decision to try to spread the money around Shiawassee County, that it was not concentrated in any one area. And I believe, without going into too many details, I think we've got at least 8 different mailing addresses in terms of towns that did receive a grant. So you'll see a release with more details. We are not releasing the names of the companies yet. So I've had some questions from people. Well, you got to be transparent. You got to tell people who got the money. We will, but here's the issue. The grants recipients have not filed their paperwork to get their money yet. So they're recommended to get money, but they need to sign some paperwork, give their checking account for direct deposit, things like that. So once that has transpired, then that entire list of recipients will be released publicly. We want to be as transparent as possible, but until the grant recipients actually accept the award, we can't release those names. So hopefully that provides everybody more clarity on the situation in case you hear things like, why didn't they get a grant? Or, because once again, I realize there's going to be some hurt feelings out there, but I believe very strongly that we did our best to be fair. It was a team approach to review these applications. Everybody got due process on this, so I stand strongly behind it, and you will see a release at some point today detailing all of that. So can we have someone maybe mute the background? Thank you. So the other thing I want to mention with Is there someone that's got music in the background? We can mute that,
Somebody
please.
Somebody put the line on hold.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Brent. The loan program, once again, I talked about this yesterday. There are a lot of loans in the queue. We are still working with Michigan Economic Development Corporation on that. Our plan at this point is we will package those loan applications up and get those to MEDC, and then we'll go from there. I did mention previously that, unfortunately, due to the size of the loan request and the amount of money available, we probably won't be able to do many of those. So, as I said earlier on the call, we need to, I think, focus our attention now on those two major SBA programs in order to support business. So the Paycheck Protection Program, the Disaster Loan Program, those are the ones I think we want to focus our attention on. Okay, a few more things. More great activity yesterday in relation to companies diversifying. I talked to another Owasso area manufacturer that is getting ready to produce a product to help the healthcare industry out from a critical personal protective equipment need. Really love seeing that. I talked about that extensively yesterday, about trying to become a better community and better state in terms of producing medical equipment. And so that is going to continue. We're going to try to keep supporting our Shiawassee County manufacturers with that. As noted yesterday by Tyler from the MEDC, the PMBC program, Pure Michigan Business Connect, is available for any company that wants to access business opportunities. And then also there is a new grant program that's out between $10,000 and $150,000 for any manufacturers that need to tool up to be able to produce medical parts as well. So I've got a few Shiawassee County companies looking at that right now. But if you know of anybody or you yourself wants to get into medical, please talk to us about that. Let's see. I'm going to be sending out another email on SPDC webinars. In fact, there's a very good one coming up today. In fact, Jody, what's the one coming up today that you thought would be good for everyone to participate in?
The one today is at 2 o'clock, and the description for that is join us for group therapy. So if you still have questions after attending or watching the Sleeps on Demand webinars, or just questions in general, they say this is the one to participate in. Questions about cash flow, employee concerns, the SBA disaster loan program, about work, online sales, and other pressing matters affecting you during this crisis. So it sounds like we're going to try to cover anything people have questions on. Justin has the link. If you register, you will also get a recorded version later on, so you can go back to use that as a reference. And they also send a lot of helpful links after each of the webinars that they do. So I would register for it ahead of time if you want to get that recorded version and all of the helpful links. But it sounds like it'll be a good seminar at 2 today.
Perfect. Jody, Jody sent me the link this morning, and I am messaging that out to everybody right now as we speak. So thank you for sharing that, Jody. Okay. Just a couple of other things. These are the normal comments. Hospital, they seem to be doing a little better right now in terms of their PPE, personal protective equipment, but they're always looking for support on material and products. So if you have anything to donate, please let me know, or get with Becky Dawkey up there at the hospital. I'm going to do another shout out. Thanks to our friends at the Shiawassee Regional Chamber. They have done a great job in assembling a number of the resources into one webpage. So as you guys all get bombarded with individual programs from me, they are putting it all onto one site. So if you go to the Shiawassee Regional Chamber of Commerce website, you'll be able to find that information. And then jobs, I do that call out every day. any companies that are still looking to hire, any essential businesses, please let us know. And we'd like to promote that for you. And as we heard from Tara, they have access to childcare. The last thing I'm going to mention, this is a little teaser for next week. It looks like we will be able to have Senator Gary Peters as a speaker on our call, I believe, on Wednesday of next week. So obviously things are fluid right now, but I've been in touch with the senator's office. And they are showing an interest in being on our call. So it's looking like that'll probably be the 8th, which is Wednesday. We'll definitely promote that so you're all aware. But there'll be an opportunity for not only the senator to talk, but we will be asking for questions from the listening audience. So that's something you're going to want to maybe make a note on. Definitely make sure to participate on the call next week. So the 8th, I believe. So with that, once again, I think we'll open it up for comments and questions for Tara or anything else you guys might have. So go ahead.
Hey, Justin, this is Jody.
Yeah.
I just wanted to point out to everybody, we've been getting a lot of questions about unemployment still for self-employed, 1099 independent contractors. I am looking at the Michigan.gov website right now, and it still says that the Unemployment Insurance Agency will release guidance regarding eligibility and the application process in the coming days. So it does not have an update. This is what's been showing up the last few days on their site. But I am going to continue watching, and Justin, if I see that changes, I can let you know so you could maybe forward that information out. But right now it is saying to just hold tight, and they will get all of that information out.
Yeah. Yep. Thank you, Jody. And, I want to thank Jody publicly for all of her work on that. As you know, we're doing our best to try to get the information out to you as quickly as possible. It's changing not by the day, but in some courses by the hour or even the minute. And so, it's a challenge out there, and a lot of it is changing, in that HR unemployment world. So, we're trying to give you guys the best information we can. We're obviously not lawyers, and I know we have some lawyers on the phone, and we appreciate all the support they're providing. But I want to do a special thank you to Jody. You've really done great work trying to get HR resources out to people. So, comments, questions from anyone?
Hey, Justin, this is Bob at Michigan Iron.
Yeah, Bob.
Two-part question. We had submitted our application last week by Sunday. Got a notification as soon as we submitted it that it was received. We did not receive any kind of an update yesterday. So I want to make sure that our application was in the system. And second part of the question, and I want to make sure we understood this right, does that application, since it did not go through the grant program, which we expected, does it become an application for the SBA disaster recovery program?
Okay, you're talking about the MEDC stuff, Bob?
Yeah.
Okay, so and it was a loan app?
We had submitted the application last week that had to be in by Sunday night,
Yep.
And the application was for the grant, and then if the grant wasn't submitted, our understanding was it got forwarded as a loan application. And we did not receive any notification of anything yesterday, which you mentioned earlier on the call.
Yeah.
And then I wanted to make sure what kind did that get forwarded for an SBA disaster relief, or is this a different MBDC program that it was forwarded to?
So short answer, Bob, I don't know why you didn't get an email, so that is something we will check on offline. Question number 2 is it is completely separate from anything related to the SBA. This is all state money and does not impact SBA applications for disaster recovery or paycheck protection in any way. So it's a completely separate process.
Okay.
So, we will check on your paperwork though that was submitted, and we'll get back to you on that hopefully today.
Okay.
Thanks, Bob.
Justin?
Yes.
Justin, this is Carol from ProLine. We also did not receive any kind of notification regarding that, whether that was granted to us or not. So I just wanted to give you a heads up on that.
Okay. All right. There
Hey,
would have
Justin.
been.
Hey, Justin.
Yeah.
This is Jeff Deason. And,
Oh yeah.
I just want to clarify the folks that applied for the grant one way or another were notified. The loan is a totally different process. ProLine applied for the loan, not the grant.
Okay, my mistake.
So there
That
has
is
yet
correct.
to be, that process has yet to move forward, and so there wasn't communication on that. And I'm looking back on Michigan Iron, but it looks to be the same situation where it was a loan request.
Absolutely. Okay. Thank you.
Hey, Justin. Bob Rogers
Yeah.
here from ProLine.
Hey, Bob.
Carol's in a remote location, so we haven't talked too much, but we were instructed to only apply for one or the other, the grant or the loan. Is that correct? I mean, it's water under the bridge now, but we were told you only apply for one or the other, so we did not apply for the grant.
Yeah, there were a few, Jeffrey. I think there were a few that we had applied for both. Not many.
Yes, it was not a one or the other type of scenario. You could potentially apply for both. However, in the case of ProLine, I mean, you have to consider what these grants were kind of designed to do. I don't know if the small amount of these grants would move the needle at all for ProLine.
Correct. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Bob.
Hey, Justin.
Yeah.
While I got you too, I'm still waiting to hear back from Gary Peters' office after the town hall when I left a request to hear from him. So maybe he'll answer those questions when he gets on next Wednesday, or maybe if you talk to him, you can ask him if they're going to do that prior to Wednesday.
I'll tell you what, Bob, because of that, I will give you a shot at first question for the senator next week.
All right. Well, he may want to answer it before he gets us on the blast here, but I'm just waiting to hear back regarding some medical equipment things, and I won't bore you everybody else with it right now, but there's some important things out there that I think should be addressed. So, but all right, thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Bob.
Hey, Justin.
Yes.
This is Kathy Brooks,
Hey, Kathy.
Lebowski Center. I too applied for the MEDC, and I didn't see it all anywhere on there where you could choose which one of the two that you were applying for. I didn't get any response as well. So just curious on, just for future, if anything like this comes up, was anybody else had questions? They never asked for more information. So just put me on the list to check into what's going on for us too, please.
Yeah, thank you. And it sounds like somebody put their phone on hold again. Jeff, we talked about this yesterday. Yeah, you are correct, Kathy. There was not a checkbox. So this application that was used was straight from Michigan Economic Development Corporation. It wasn't our own application. We just took what they gave us. So I do understand there may have been a lack of clarity there. So I don't know. Jeffrey, do you want to comment on that?
Maybe that's who put us on hold.
No,
This is
sorry, I was
Jody.
on mute.
Go ahead.
So in the instructions for the grant and the loan, it basically said that a grant was anything below $10,000, a loan was anything in that higher range. So it was one of those things where it was just in the information packet that MEDC sent us.
Okay, I get it. I thought I read that and I still was a little confused. I thought you could get part of it, but that's okay. I just, if we could just get official notice so that I can show my board that I applied.
Yeah. And sorry to interrupt, and I don't know whose phone it was, but someone just came off of hold. Just to be cognizant, I'm not calling anybody out because I don't even know who it was, but when you put your phone on hold, there's background music that plays that goes over the call. So just be cognizant of that in the future when you put your phone on hold. So whoever that is, just a heads up. Thank you. So, all right, other comments and questions?
Yeah,
Justin, Randy Beatty. Oh, go ahead.
Justin, Mike with SLH.
Hey, Mike.
And this question is for anybody out there. We're struggling with this Paycheck Protection Program, trying to make the right decision, obviously. But I'm hearing rumor that the stimulus money from the feds on the unemployment, the $600 extra, has anybody found out whether or not that is a guaranteed $600, or is it up to their the employees' 40-hour pay?
Mm-hmm.
I'm understanding that they're gonna reduce that. Nobody's gonna make more than they have made when they were working. Is that true or not?
Mike, my understanding is it is not capped. That in Michigan, I think the max weekly unemployment benefit is $362, and then the stimulus package added $600 onto that. So it'll be $600 plus whatever the normal Michigan unemployment benefit that they would receive is, which is capped. So people could get as much as $962 a week. It's not capped at the current wage. So that, and there was an article on that I saw the other day, how some people are literally going to make more money, in fact, possibly a lot more money than what they were making working. And that is creating some major friction. I've talked to a few people in the last couple days. In fact, I just got a message while we're talking here about, people wanting to quit and go on unemployment because of that pay differential. Now, and I know we've had lawyers on the call here in the last day or two. I believe that you can't just quit. I mean, there has to be a justification in order to get unemployment. But that is a major friction point here, Mike. I think it's the signature challenge, this rub between companies that want to bring their people back on the payroll through this paycheck program and then people that want to stay on unemployment because they're going to make more money. So definitely probably the single biggest challenge. I don't know. Anybody else have any comments on that?
Justin, Randy Beatty. From what I read on this, it looks like the $600 is a fairly short-term thing. It's not going to get it. Doesn't go for the full length as far as I can see. Is that what everybody else sees?
I think it's 39 weeks, if I'm not mistaken.
This is Emily with the United Way. I believe that it is for a 4-week time period for the $600 extra is what I have seen. Yes. And then you do have to be relieved of your services to be eligible for unemployment. So someone who decides they want to quit would not have the due diligence to be able to do so and to collect unemployment. Now, that will probably mean a lot of paperwork and back and forth, unfortunately, for the unemployment system and the employer to prove that these employees were not released from their duties, but they would have to be let go. Just to answer that question. Yeah, that's
Justin,
my
I got a
understanding as
different.
well.
I'm sorry. I got a different release from the governor's affected COVID-19 release. It says programs will now be provided to set an amount of $600 a week for up to 4 months on top of the state benefit. So I believe the $600 federal money is good for 4 months.
Mm.
Yeah, Justin,
Mike?
back on your employees quitting, the note you sent out from Klein, and Griffin yesterday pretty much addresses what happens when an employee quits. I think if they're just quitting for more money, that doesn't fly according to the Klein, Griffin document.
Mike?
Yes.
That is, the key word is up, or words is up to 4 months. I think if this is over in 4 weeks, 7 weeks, 9 weeks, whatever it is, at that point in time, the $600 will stop. Okay. Yeah, it's a confusing mess, but it's as employers, it's in our benefit to put the employees back on the payroll if they were removed. And it, if it's going to be forgiven through the Paycheck Protection Program, it just guarantees that all the fringe benefits that we continue to pay while our employees are off we're going to be compensated for it. So it's a sticky wicket, but employee retention is important, and it's a serious issue, obviously.
I think it's the top issue right now. I think how this plays out, I mean, Mike, it's really going to be company by company as companies pursue this, having a strategy to do that, to bring people back on. I've said this, on previous calls. I think those businesses that are good businesses and that, treat their people well, that are fair to them, I fully expect are going to do well. And Mike, I put you in that category. You're a great business guy. You're a great guy. You've done, very well for many years. I'm very hopeful that you're going to do well with this. But I'm sure there'll be some employers out there that don't too. So it's just a wild west right now. And, I think each company really has to be thinking about, okay, I want this program. I want my people back. How do I do that? And are there things you can do? Are there enticements possibly? One of the things that's come up previously is, this program does allow for additional money to be received that could possibly use for maybe a bonus. Compensation is part of what you can get deferred on this. So that's something that could be under consideration. Is getting that money, because you can get, I believe it's 250% of that payroll cost. Now, obviously, I think they built that in there in order to pay not only for payroll, but also for things like rent and utilities. But you've got potentially a bigger chunk of money you can go after. Maybe, obviously, you set that aside for your base wages and compensation you have been paying your workers. But maybe you set a little bit extra aside to bump up their pay or give them a one-time bonus as part of this. So I think that's where companies got to get creative and think about, okay, what can we do to entice our workers to come back? So, that's just some additional thoughts. Any other comments on that item?
I wish you didn't even say that.
What? Any other comments on that item?
Justin, not
Okay.
on that comment. When they say about bringing people back, the people don't actually have to go back to work in the office or wherever do they? I thought they could still just go on the payroll, but they don't. If they have the fear of the virus being in the workplace, they don't have to go back. Is that correct?
Yeah. So
Okay.
Yeah, that's the thing about it. It's kind of interesting, and apparently this happens in the rest of the world. This similar kind of program. This is the first time America's ever done this, my understanding. But basically, when you say come back on the payroll, it doesn't mean they're literally coming back to work. It means they're coming back on the payroll. So an employer, if they do this, and let's say you're an employer that's shut down right now. You want to rehire your people off unemployment. That doesn't mean they come back to work. It means that you can pay them and they're on your payroll and they can still be at home going through this crisis. But Don, that begs another question. The way the legislation reads right now is you have to make an effort to rehire everybody. So you have to offer the opportunity. But the reality is, for probably almost every business, that may not be the case. But then, see, it's so tough, guys, because everything's changing so much. But then, the question is, if you offer to bring anybody back to rehire people and they refuse to stay or to come back because they want to stay on unemployment, then now you get back into the legalities of the unemployment system. If they're offered a job and they don't want to take it, do they still qualify for unemployment? I mean, then you weave into the health hazards that are part of, the unemployment system now. So it's very, very complicated. That's why I think, employers just need to be thinking about, all right, how do I get as many people as I can to come back on my payroll, as possible? So, and getting creative with that. So anyway, sorry.
One reason for them to say they'd come back, even though they're going to make more money unemployed, would be they'd get if they have benefits, especially health care, they would get that back.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
That's huge to me. I mean, it should be to most people.
Well, and job certainty, I mean, I would hope that for a lot of people to know that they're going to have a job when this ends, whenever it ends, versus, hey, that check looks pretty good right now, but when this is over, what am I going to do? I may not get a chance to go back to my company because they offered me it before and I turned them down. So I'm hoping that plays into consideration. So this is the psychology of this, of how people are going to operate. I mean, it's just going to be, it's going to be company by company, people by people, person by person here. So it's going to be the biggest challenge that I see with this program, though. So,
hey, Justin.
And this is
go
ahead.
Oh, Justin, Renee from Oaks Fisher Insurance. Sorry, I don't have
a
voice.
Renee.
I'm sorry. If you can't understand me,
okay.
Just let me know.
No, you're good.
As you know, we've been bombarded with a lot of emails from you and from all over. Can you just put in context, in a nutshell, what these what programs beyond the grant, because we didn't do the grant, are available? It's this paycheck protection, and what other programs?
Yeah, sure. The two that I think are the most critical right now are the Paycheck Protection Program and the SBA Disaster Recovery Loan Program. The Paycheck Protection is probably preferable simply because it is a loan but can be converted into a grant. Grants are always preferred to loans. The disaster recovery may be more applicable for some folks or used in conjunction because it can be used for more purposes. And what I mean by that is disaster recovery has a lot of different ways you can use the money, but paycheck protection can only be used for certain things. But for most businesses, that program will cover most of it, and that is payroll, compensation, benefits, but also includes things like a mortgage obligation on a building or rent on a building and utilities. So for a lot of companies, if you can get money to cover the payroll, to cover the rent and utilities for a period of time and have that turn into a grant, that is huge. So that's why we're... Yep,
these
go
all
ahead.
fall under the CARES Act, correct?
The Paycheck Protection Program does fall under the CARES Act. The Disaster Loan Program has been around for many years.
Okay.
And
right.
Justin, if I can just add on real quickly to that, I know there's been a lot of information floating out, and for those of you who are trying to make sense of all of it, the Shiawassee Regional Chamber does have an information page breaking all this down on their website. So if you want just an opportunity to kind of go somewhere and read through all this again, that's a good centralized location.
Hey, Justin, Don
Yeah.
again, one last thing. I know this is pay thing is, I think, an 8-week program. But I would find it hard to believe if this virus thing, if it's still out there and they are not winding down, it's no guarantee, but I would think the feds would extend it. That's just, and who knows, but they'd be almost obligated to extend it if we don't get a handle on this thing in 8 weeks.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. I mean, obviously it's day to day, hour to hour at this point, but I think you're right. I think the bigger question right now, Don, quite honestly, is, well, before I comment on that, Renee, if you have individual questions as well, feel free to call me. I'd be happy to talk with you. But to your point, Don, my concern is more, I think the $350 billion is going to get obligated very quickly. I know it sounds like a lot of money, but you're talking nationwide, every company under 500 employees, which is most of America, and covering payroll, rent, utilities for 8 weeks. That money's going to go fast. That's why I've been pushing so hard the last few days our companies to look at this is I want to make sure Shiawassee County businesses are in the queue. And so that's why I've just, all the emails, all the calls, everything is to try to get on that. But, you know, I'll reiterate, talk to your lender, be in touch with your lender. I literally just got an email from a company. I won't say which one or which bank they're working with, but they already submitted this morning their paperwork. As I mentioned at the start of the call, some banks and some companies are going ahead, some are waiting. I recommend talking to your institution. Follow the lead of your institution and your lender on this. Other comments, questions?
Justin, this is Randy Beatty.
Yeah.
I just went through the guidelines that you sent out, and they've managed to do what the government does. They're here to help to straighten this out for us, and then they muddy the waters. The big question I think a lot of people are going to have that I think I know what they want, what they're saying right now, but they say that you need for each person to cap at $100,000, and I think they mean total compensation, including health care and everything else is capped at $100,000. But then on step 2, they say subtract any compensation paid to an employee in excess of an annual salary of $100,000. So they come back and infer there that it's only salary that's capped at $100,000, not the benefits. But then other places it appears they're talking about the benefits too. So I think a lot of people are going to have questions on that, and that's still not clear in their guidelines.
Oh, there we go. There's that music again. That's a great question, Randy. I don't know the answer to. That is whoever you're going to work with from a lending perspective. I would definitely ask them about that.
Yeah. No, that was more just a general question for everybody, or just statement for everybody here. The guidelines are not clear about that still, and it's an important thing to find out from your lender which way to calculate that, because they muddied it. They tried to make it clear and then they muddied it up again.
I'm going to guess, Randy, that they're talking about the actual wage or salary is the $100,000, not incentivizing wages, because if you roll in wages, health care, retirement compensation, the whole package that people get, that is going to bring in a lot more barriers of that $100,000 versus people who just make a straight $100,000 on salary. So I'm going to guess it's the salary amount. The base is the $100,000 metric. You can't incentivize above that.
That's what I've been hoping for too. But their wording that they use refers to, the 100% annual salary, but then they talk about payroll costs, and they use those terms interchangeably, unfortunately, in their definition. I don't know.
Hey, Randy, it's my Ramagupta here. It's my understanding that when I know exactly what you're talking about, is they're talking that under all of that, payroll costs include the benefits and whatever. But that's part. I think when they're referring to that, it's part of what's forgivable. But for the actual just the straight dollar amount. What they're looking at is that's just the salary. They're just looking at the straight dollar amount for the salary, not the total cost, not the total compensation of the employee.
Well, I hope that's true, but when you look at their examples in here, they kind of go against that. So that's what's got me concerned. I wasn't asking for an answer. I was just saying this is something we've all got to still figure out.
Yeah.
Their examples seem to assume that it's all in there. So it's still muddy.
I think if I'm looking at this, Randy, and not to go too far down the rabbit hole here, but I think I'm looking at one of their example calculations. So I think in order to get your total amount of money you can get, they are asking you to include the package, wages, benefits, retirement, healthcare, all that as part of your base. But then you subtract out anybody's salaries above 100,000. So you subtract out that chunk of money. So I think it is both in the calculation. I think it's both total and individual salary go into that. So
I hope you're right. I was on a conference yesterday where somebody who was the supposed expert said it's the total amount of everything. I'm hoping he's wrong. So.
This is, once again, this is. And this has me, I'll be honest, everybody, this has me genuinely concerned as a taxpayer, right? The reality is they're trying to push $350 billion out the door in a matter of days. And with all these questions, all these guidelines that are changing by the second, the reality is I know a month, a year, 5 years down the road, you're going to see stories in the media how somebody got money and they shouldn't have got it. Or they got more than they should have gotten, and it's because of this. But that has to be balanced with, we need companies to get the money. We can't wait 2 months, 3 months. So these are the very tough trade-offs that are having to be made right now. So it's a very tough situation, no question about it. Other comments? Any final thoughts? Very good discussion today. Very good discussion. Anybody else have anything else? Okay. Well, thank you, everybody. Another very productive call. This is our last call of the week. We will be back on Monday morning. Have a good weekend and stay safe.
Thanks, Justin. Bye.
Thanks.